Welcome to the Essential Self-Care Podcast, a show for those of us who are, let's face it, too busy for self-care. Each week, we bring you real-life stories and expert insights to help you create a kinder, more compassionate relationship with yourself. I'm your host, Dr. Sheetal Ajmani, a physician with over 2 decades of experience blending Eastern and Western well-being practices. As the founder of Radiant Living Institute, I'm here to help you reconnect with your own inner radiance. Remember, small changes make a large impact, and it all starts here. Please note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare provider about your specific situation. Now, let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Essential Self-Care Podcast. I am so excited to be in the podcast studio today with my guest. It's always so much fun to have local guests on the show where we can be in the podcast studio together and have this conversation. So today I have the pleasure of welcoming Jara Clark to the Essential Self-Care Podcast. So Jara and I we connected through our mutual friend, Jasmine Jameson, who was on the show earlier this year, where when Jasmine was on the show, Jasmine and I had actually recorded that episode live at Jasmine's first annual Hit Fit Festival. And at that festival, Jara Clark was on a mental health and fitness panel.
Absolutely.
And so that's actually how we met. Jara Clark is a certified personal trainer. She's a transformation speaker, author, and the founder of Fit Goddess Tribe, where she helps individuals realize that fitness is 100% mental and that growth through fitness can be an all-encompassing transformation of mind, body, and spirit. I'm excited because today Jara and I are going to dive into a bit of her personal self-care journey. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you in advance for your willingness and openness to share your personal self-care journey with us today.
Absolutely. You know that it's all about who we can touch with our story, because what we go through is not for us. The lessons are for everyone else.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, what a beautiful way to start the episode. So with that, can you tell us about a time in your life where self-care became no longer an option, but an absolute priority for you? And more importantly, what tools, modalities, mindset, or lessons did you learn along the way?
Oh, of course. So like some girls, right? I was fed the fairy tale princess story where you have to get a man and then you can live all your dreams, which is not bad, right? It's just not the same for everyone. And at the end of a 10-year relationship, my ex told me, well, you have no goals. And I'm a very goal-oriented person, so that struck me to my core. I said, oh my God, no goals? Then what am I doing? I thought being a mother and wife was the goal. So I go back through my journal, and in like the first couple of pages before I ever had kids, there was a little blurb where I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll worry about my weight. So I said, okay, today's as good a day as any. And at that time, I was about 240 pounds. I just had my final son. And I was like, well, what do I do? How do I get started? I called a girlfriend up. We were debating between, I think, the YMCA and some other gym. And we both were like, let's go to the Y. They had childcare, all the things that made it easy to not say, no, I can't do this. And I tried every class. I tried body pump. I tried Zumba. I tried Boxmaster. It was intense. But I ended up in Zumba, one, because of the instructor, and then two, the culture of it. I like not just the ratchicity of dancing, right? But there is something to be said about the gyration and undulation of your body. It's much different than just being lewd with your movements. And then that led me to, my oldest was in Taekwondo. So he kept saying, well, Mom, why don't you take Taekwondo with me? And I'm like, no, I don't want to pay for that. But they had a kickboxing class that was free for the moms. And I had to use that moment to be a woman of my word, especially for my child. I tell them we eat, sleep, and exercise, and that's how we take care of ourselves. And at the time, I was not following my own word, so I had to redirect. So now we're dancing, we're doing kickboxing. It's getting really, really crazy. Then the relationship ends and I don't know what to do. So much emotion, so much energy just in my body, and it felt overwhelming and I couldn't release it. A mentor of mine in dance fitness took me to a boxing gym. And that's where I learned about strength training.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get into that, I'm going to pause here because you just shared so much and I want to reflect on some of these pieces. So, first of all, I want to reflect on the journal that you went back and you looked at your journal because you were like, okay, I want to start focusing on some other goals in addition to being a mom, being a wife.
Absolutely.
And so you went back in your journal, and the only, one of the reasons I bring that up is I've journaled on and off over the years, more so on than off over the years. I've found that that is one of the tools in my self-care toolbox that I often will turn to. And, there's a tremendous benefit of journaling, simply to journal and to write and to get it out.
Absolutely.
And I think I've certainly had moments in my life where there's been benefit also in going back and seeing and reviewing some of the things that I wrote and really learning from it, really getting insight into sort of what my inner voice is asking for and calling for. And often there are things in there that in hindsight, when I look back, it's like, okay, months and months prior to whenever I'm looking at it again, it's like, oh wow, I knew that then, or that's something I thought about then that's relevant now, or that I can address now, or that I still haven't quite addressed to the full extent. And so I just wanted to point that out and pull that nugget out from your story and your journey. And then the other thing I wanted to pull out is you said you and one of your girlfriends decided to start with you were looking at different options and you decided to start at the YMCA. And you mentioned, a few different reasons, part of that being that they have childcare. And specifically you use this phrase, I jotted it down, it's all the things that would make it easy to get started. And I think that's so important. So anyone who has worked with me, any of my clients, or if you've been watching the show for any bit of time, you know that one of my big core beliefs and approaches is that small changes make a large impact.
Absolutely.
So often we stay stuck or we don't start a journey or start something that we want to work on, whether it's for our personal development, our physical fitness, mental, emotional, spiritual growth, any of those levels, really. We'll stay stuck because we think we have to do something really, really huge. But if we can break it down and break it down so that it feels easy.
Right. It works with the brain system. It's small enough that it's manageable, like the SMART goals, right? It's manageable, it's direct, and you can measure your growth from doing it. Like if I take 2 steps, I know that I'm 2 steps further, regardless of the value I add to the steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also the sort of emotional piece that of like success building upon success. So then it's like, okay, you can measure, you've seen that you've taken these 2 steps, you notice how it feels to have taken those 2 steps, building this muscle of celebration and success within your body, your mind, and your emotions. And often I found that can fuel you to move forward.
Absolutely.
Something else I wanted to reflect on is, I love how you broke it down to your children of like 3 ways to take care of yourself, because I think it's a great reminder for children and it's a great reminder for adults, like eat, sleep, and exercise. Like those are great core components for taking care of yourself.
It doesn't get any simpler than that. And you can expound on them exponentially, but just because again, they're kids, just eat, sleep, and exercise.
Exactly. And again, also for us, for our adult brains, right? Like what we were just talking about of just breaking things down to make it simple, to make it as approachable, to make it as easy as possible to start to address. And our mind tends to like 3s and hold on to 3s.
Absolutely.
So I love that. So eat, sleep, and exercise. And then the other thing that I love that you shared is that you found that these were things that you were telling your kids, and then you reflected on it and felt that they were things that you weren't holding true within your own life, and so you wanted to, or you found it important for them to also set that example. Before we go on, I'm excited to share something that could really make a positive impact on your life. Want to design a life that truly aligns with your values, no matter what time of year it is? Create Your Radiant Year will show you how to make your goals feel meaningful and achievable. This transformative workshop will guide you in designing a life aligned with your values without relying on rigid resolutions. You'll learn a powerful, adaptable method to confidently pursue your dreams, no matter where life takes you. It's not about what you do, but who you become. Head over to radiantlivinginstitute.com to access this workshop and create your radiant year today. I hope you found that helpful. If you are ready to explore this more, check out the link in the show notes below. Now, let's jump back into today's episode.
Absolutely. In Black culture, sometimes we do as I say, not as I do. However, in African culture, there's a proverb that says, do as I do. There's a story about a crab mother and a baby, and she's trying to get the baby to walk forward. What we know crabs walk sideways. Later in the story, the crab baby is like, well, Mom, show me how. And the mom's like, well, I can't. Baby says, well, then how can I? If you can't show me, how can I do it? And that began my motivation to make sure that I'm a woman of my word, because I want my sons to believe in my action and not just what I say.
I love that. I love that. I haven't heard that African proverb before, and I love that how you presented that. That often will say, do as I say, not as I do. Mm-hmm. But the African proverb is do as I do, right? And, I worked as a pediatrician for over 16 years, right? And so I always say, kids will model what they see.
Absolutely.
More so than what you tell them. So if what you're telling them is different than what they are actually seeing, they're going to model what they see.
Correct. We forget that first we are visual and auditory learners. So before we can actually communicate with words and the vibrations that our throats make, we just watch what's happening. So, like you said, I'm going to go based off of what I see you doing versus what I say you doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, goodness. So what a great motivator then when you have that, to think of that with what a great motivator of like the example that you're setting for your children. Going back to when I was practicing as a pediatrician, actually, that was one of the reasons that I went into pediatrics, is because I felt like often people are more likely or more motivated to make changes that affects their own health when they know that that's going to affect their children's health and overall well-being as well.
Absolutely. It wasn't until after I had given birth to the boys that I did research, and it's cool because back to the journaling, I can see where, like you're saying, I'm doing these things because of how they affect the child within my body. But without the child actually being developed, right? The eggs still exist. And as mothers, we have a very, very powerful duty to keep ourselves in alignment for those children to come forth healthier. Mm-hmm. So the things that I pressed myself to do during pregnancy, my kids are really, really good at now. And because I journaled to them, I have like this rap sheet where I can like, okay, well, you like this and this and this and this, because when you were in my body, I didn't like these things, but now I do. And the only difference is your existence. And now that they're out, it's true. It's true that they still enjoy these things. And as they grow, I continue to grow, and we learn more about how we're so similar. Which again makes it even more reason why I have to manage this and maintain this journey, because if I am, again, another African proverb, it's ubuntu. I am because we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, I love that one. And actually, I love that one, and I've known that one for quite a few years now. But I've never mentioned it on the show. And so, since you brought that up, can you say it again and just explain to our listeners what that means? Give a brief explanation of that.
Absolutely. Ubuntu. It's spelled Ubuntu, which means that everything that I am, we are. So it doesn't matter that you're not African and I have African descent. Because I am you, because we all come from the same source, the same light, the same molecules, everything that I do is a reflection of you. So if I sit here across from you and I see beauty and intelligence, then I must be as well. And then the reverse, if you sit across from me and say, oh my God, you're so gorgeous, well, you are my reflection.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Of
Thank you
course.
so much. Um, so we traveled such a journey here in this conversation so far. I want to rewind a bit,
Okay.
because I kind of paused in you sharing your journey to reflect on a number of points, which took us to share and reflect even many more beautiful points. But I want to go back to where you left off, which is that then the relationship ended and you felt an overwhelming amount of energy within your body. And then that led you to, I believe, a boxing class.
Absolutely. That was they have these shirts there that says boxing saved my life. It is my favorite shirt to wear because it absolutely did. And this is true for a lot of women that have gone through trauma, abuse, those sorts of things. It's really a way to release that energy. Um, Imagine never being a fighter in my life, but imagine having a grown 6'5" man tell you to punch him in the face. It's liberating because one, as women, we're taught not to hit men because you're not going to win that fight. So now, in a moment where I may be extremely aggressive or angry internally and projecting towards the male population, here is my opportunity to safely exert that energy and not have recompense. Imagine if I had to utilize that on my ex or some other man that had nothing to do with any of my emotions. And to be able to channel that energy respectfully, one taught me focus, it taught me discipline, and it taught me self control. So now I have this place where I can go where men are encouraging me to use my strength, which is not typical in society. So now we've get this. Unfortunately, a lot of Black women don't have fathers. So I didn't have that relationship to where maybe my father would have instilled those values in me. But now, as an adult woman looking for change and solace and trying to manage hurt from what I'm projecting as the other man, right? The man in my life, it's really my misunderstanding of myself. And in this ring, I'm able to battle it out. There was one pivotal moment I remember. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day. And I knew nothing was going to happen, but you still have that hope. And that hope really enraged me. I called my coach. I said, hey, I know you're married, but is the gym open? Because I really just want to pick up heavy stuff and put it down until I don't feel this way. So I go to the gym and he's got me punching the bag and just punching the bag. And then somewhere in there, your body, really your mind starts to weaken. Mm-hmm. And he notices my form change. And he says to me, it's not your body that's weak. It's your mind. Mm. That was, again, I'm a very intellectual person. That was a shot. Oh, what? My mind is weak? But he was absolutely right. In that moment, I adopted this head tilt to shake off that thing in my head that was telling me that I couldn't do it. And then after that, my form starts to get better. I get what I consider a second win, but really it was just renewed faith within myself.
Beautiful. I want to reflect on a few things here. Oh my goodness. So amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. First of all, I love how you shared, and I jotted down this phrase specifically because I thought it was just so beautifully said. You were looking for a way to channel your energy respectfully. Mm-hmm. I love that phrasing. to channel your energy respectfully. You know, emotions, feelings, they come up within our body, all sorts of emotions, from
Right.
anger to frustration to joy to grief to happiness. All of these emotions are energies that move through our body. And
Absolutely.
so finding ways to channel some of those really powerful energies respectfully, right? Whatever that means for you, right? With respect to your body, with respect to your mind, with respect to your emotions, with respect to your spirit, right?
Right.
There's so many different levels we can talk
Respect to
about
your
that on.
surroundings, because
Yeah.
screaming is a great modality to get out a lot of pent up aggression,
Mm.
but you may not want to scream in an office building.
Right, right. Yeah, respect for your environment, respect for
Right.
your, yeah, exactly. And then I also love that you shared that in that moment, you found that, for once, perhaps for the first time ever, feeling encouraged to use your strength and use your power. Gosh, there's just something so beautiful to that. You know, in the yogic tradition, of which I have studied in depth in terms of the philosophy as well, we talk about this energy called Shakti, which is a
Mm.
divine feminine energy, and it's a very powerful energy. And in my culture, that feminine energy is very respected and traditionally um, respected as much or many cases even to a greater degree than the masculine energy. But then
Absolutely.
with things like colonialism and patriarchy, right?
And all of those
All of
all
those
of the
things
things.
that has shifted. But having these reminders for women, or for anyone who identifies as female, to tap into that energy. And honestly, you know, I just said, women and anyone who identifies as a woman, but really anyone, male or female,
Right.
honestly, we just in our culture are not taught to, because we all have these
Both.
masculine and feminine energies within
Absolutely.
us. And so I actually take back what I said of saying just, only for women. I think all of us, male or female, learning to start to embrace those feminine qualities. It's a certain type of strength, and there's strength in both of those.
Absolutely.
Feminine and masculine. There's strength in both of those. They're just a different type of strength. But I love that you shared that. And then the other thing I want to reflect on, um, and perhaps this will be the final thing we reflect on, just for time's sake, as we begin to wrap up the episode, is just this emotion of anger. I can share, there's been times in my life where I felt a lot of anger as well, similar situations as to what you described, end of really sort of major relationships in my life, things like that. And I remember feeling so uncomfortable with that emotion. I think
Right.
that's another emotion, at least for me, that I just wasn't used to, didn't feel comfortable with, wasn't sure how to
Mm.
express, wasn't sure um, if it was allowed.
Yeah.
And so that's why, another kind of going back to that phrase that you shared earlier of channeling your energy respectfully, and also knowing that anger is
It's okay.
it is okay. It is okay. And again, it's an energy, and it's a valid energy, again, depending on, what you're um
What you're
going
angry about.
through and what you're
Exactly.
angry about, and how you're channeling it and using it effectively, of course.
Absolutely.
But I also believe that feelings are signals. So, one I give one of my signature keynotes is about boundaries. And one of the things that I often will say is, feelings can be signals as to what your boundaries are, right? Like
Absolutely.
if you didn't get angry, how would you know that a boundary was crossed? So
Right.
that's just one example.
I like
Um,
that.
yeah, so that's just one example. But I just wanted to bring that up because I um, suspect that I'm probably not the only one who feels uncomfortable with the emotion of anger. But I think normalizing that to some degree, that is a healthy, it is on the spectrum of emotions.
Right.
It is a healthy emotion to experience. It's just, how are you channeling that? And so I'm just coming back to that phrase that you said, channeling that energy respectfully. So I love that. I know that was just like a piece
Just a
of your
smidge.
self-care journey. But within that piece, there's so many beautiful nuggets and gems of wisdom that you shared from your own personal experience and growth and lessons learned. And I appreciate you for being here and for sharing that with us. For anyone who wants to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, where can they find you?
Oh, absolutely. We are on all social media platforms except, I think, Snapchat. But you can find us Fit Goddess Tribe or Fit Goddess Tribe Mindset, because remember, we are very focused on the brain and how it actually interacts with the body that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So I will include all those links in the show notes below. Thank you again for being here.
My pleasure.
I know you have so many choices for how to spend your time, so I thank you for being here today with Essential Self-Care. As a gift, download your free workbook, 6 simple yet powerful steps to create your radiant life at radiantlivinginstitute.com and start your journey to a more radiant you.